And no matter whether or not we agree with the voice that is speaking, whether or not we agree with the message that is being spoken to us, whether or not we agree with the policies that are carried out based upon a message that we may not agree with, we accept that because that is the game. The game is the game. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Well, that's what this administration is doing. Actually, they're hating the player and hating the game. And what they're doing is they're changing the game and they're putting their players in to ensure that they win. Now, if we're talking about power, oh, that's great. But when we're talking about the voices of the people, that's not okay. People on the right talk about let the market dictate. We want the market to dictate. Well, did the market dictate that Jimmy Kimmel should not be on air? Did the market dictate that Stephen Colbert get canceled? Did the market dictate that the president is personally going to go after Seth Meyers and Jimmy Fallon? I don't know. I doubt it. Maybe you have to scale back on Jimmy Kimmel's show. Maybe you have to scale back on Stephen Colbert's show. Maybe you have to scale back on Jimmy Fallon's show. Maybe you have to scale back on Seth Meyers' show. Maybe. Again, I don't see the books. But to go after these guys, go after these networks, simply because you're not ideologically aligned, because they're talking bad about the president, late night TV is that. Always been that. They attack power. And getting back to what Pablo Torre is doing in good journalism, we need people to attack power because absolute power corrupts absolutely. And I understand there are some of us who are just apathetic. They're like, you know what? Who cares? It doesn't matter because the rich and powerful are going to do whatever the rich and powerful want to do. But that's why we have rules. That's why we have a government. That's why we have law enforcement. That's why we have a constitution. That's why we have people. That's why we have media. That's why we have journalism in order to create checks and balances. See, I took civics growing up, and I loved it so much that I said, you know what? I'm going to take AP government. Pass my AP exam, if anybody cared. And after taking AP government, I said, you know what? I want to continue studying this. I'm going to go to college and major in political science because I love this system. Hell, I love this country. I love the Constitution. I really do. I think it's one of the best documents ever written. Even the things I don't like about it, I understand who Black people were when this was written, but the way that the document was written, it's damn near foolproof. Until you have an administration and a president who does not understand the Constitution, who is a billionaire and wants to do whatever he wants to do. See, Steve Ballmer, he didn't want to abide by the salary cap. I don't think Steve Ballmer is the only owner who does it. I think it's more common than it's not common. But you need people like Pablo Torre to go after Steve Ballmer, to inform the people, whether it's people with the Clippers, people with the NBA, the masses, it doesn't matter. But you need somebody to expose what's going on behind closed doors to try to stop people from doing things that are not in line with the rules. That's why we need Jimmy Kimmel's. That's why we need Stephen Colbert's. That's why we need Jimmy Fallon's. That's why we need Seth Meyers. That's why we need Bill Maher. That's why you need me. We need people who are going to look at things, see things, and call them out and inform the people who may not be paying attention or may not know enough to understand when they're being mistreated and robbed of their American rights. We need this. Gotta have it. Because if we don't, the absolutely powerful will be absolutely powerful and will be absolutely corrupt. And you know what? We fall in on the short end of the stick. You see where I'm going here, right? And let's pivot this to ABC. Have a backbone. Have a freaking backbone. Or is it because you're a mega corporation, all you care about is your bottom line? Now, I understand when we're talking business, it's all about the bottom line. But many of the actors inside of a business are there for a paycheck. And really, they're there because they're talented and they're passionate about something. Back to Pablo Torre and Kawhi Leonard. Those people who worked for that sleazebag company that Steve Ballmer and Kawhi was in bed with, they were truly passionate about making the world a more green space, but not the leadership. They only cared about a bottom line, a dollar. And don't get me wrong, money's important. It's very important. It makes the world go round. We need money because things cost. But when we allow money to lead us, we're only going to end up at the money. And the negative effects of following the money is you forget about the people. AI is great. Modernization, great. Yes, new technology, great. But what happens to the people? When we're taking jobs from people for AI. I just saw an AI singer like signed a $2-3 million contract. Bro, what? This is just the beginning. How are we going to allow computers to do art? It's one thing to do labor, but to do art? And I'm not saying we should move to the Stone Ages, but at what point is too much too much? Pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered. America's been a nice fat pig, show pig for years. Well, now we've eaten so much, we're turning into a hog. I don't want to see my country get slaughtered. I don't want to see my people get slaughtered. And I'm not talking about physically slaughtered. I'm talking about the wealth gap increasing. We have rich and poor. The elimination of the middle class, the elimination of the layers in the middle class, the elimination of the layers in American society. It's not about just the haves and the have-nots. We got to have the haves, the have-nots, the have a little bit, the have some, the have none, the had and then lost and get it back.